Hey YouTube, Wheelchair21 here, and this is Doyle's DVDs. We're back finally, and I'm skipping over Guyver's Volumes 1 and Volumes 2 because I have a one of those little pamphlet book things. I don't know where I threw it. I'm pretty sure I put it nicely up on the table here, and I'm gonna want to show the book when I do the review because every other volume comes with a little booklet with concept art and cool crap like that, but I don't have all the volumes. So I'm just going to go with the review that we have now, and it is the history of the WWE Championship. This was made back in maybe 06, or early 06, late 05, because the last match features just John Cena during his first run, but it had to be 06 when this was made, but it only goes up to 05's title matches, because it ends with like Rob Van Dam. The thing is about this little pamphlet thing, instead of telling you what matches are in the DVD set, it gives you like the top WWE superstars and their like times of reigns. Like it'll say from this to this and this to that, and like gives a comma, and then it's like the next reign, and the reign after that. And I really don't like that. I don't like that it doesn't instead give you days of how long or something like that. I would like that, like you see on the Wikipedia links. It actually gives you the days and stuff. I like those kind of things. I like the graphs, or the bar graphs, or whatever, the tables. And because it has in here Buddy Rogers, and has Backlund, and Billy Graham, and Bret Hart, and Taker. Bret Hart, Yokozuna, Flair, Taker, Triple H, Mick Foley, McMahon, Big Show, Angle, Jericho, Lesnar, Guerrero, Cena, Edge, and Rob Van Dam. And the disc has 3 discs, at least, I don't know how many hours. It has to be at least 6 hours, 6 to 9 hours long, as always. The cover is just like this. The discs look pretty much like the title, at least. And disc 1 holds matches of Ivan Koloff versus Pedro Morales, Bruno Sammartino versus Killer Kowalski, Sammartino versus superstar Billy Graham, Billy Graham versus Bob Backlund, Bob Backlund versus Greg the Hammer Valentine, Bob Backlund versus Sergeant Slaughter, the Iron Sheik versus Hulk Hogan, when Hulk Hogan won at MSG in 94. Wait, 94? Oh, 84. 84. That was a typo on my behalf, because I have on my right side of my screen all the matches written out for me. Following that, Hogan Bundy, WrestleMania 2, Steel Cage. Hogan Orndorff, Saturday Night's Main Event at in a Steel Cage match. Andre Hogan, who can forget that match at WrestleMania 23, when it was the Irresistible Force versus the Immovable Object. Great match. That is one of my favorite matches on the discs, next to the Steel Cage matches. I like those old Steel Cages. The Orndorff match, where they had a draw and they had to restart the match. Hogan and Andre, Saturday Night Main Event, where Andre, the whole Earl Hebner and Paul Hebner, I think, or David Hebner, since they were like twin brothers, there was that whole huge giant confusion of who was who when they called the match. And the title got vacated, then Macho Man won it in a tournament, and then the following WrestleMania, it was Hogan versus Macho Man for the title, and that's where we end off on Disc 2. Disc 2 ends at WrestleMania 5 on April 2nd, 1989. Disc 2 starts off immediately at WrestleMania 6. Who can forget WrestleMania 6? Hogan versus the Warrior, Intercontinental Championship versus the WWF Championship at the time. Great match. I mean, WWE Superstar Edge, that was his first WrestleMania he ever went to. He saw it live in person. I saw it, like, all the time on DVDs and VHSs, and I must say that is one of the best matches to start off Disc 2. Following that, you have the Bret Hart versus Owen Hart 1994 SummerSlam Steel Cage match. Great match between the two brothers. They were all out on that one. They wanted to kill each other in this rivalry. They were just beating the hell out of each other, hair pulling, biting the cage, and just submission after submission. Following that, you know who's coming up next. Hart Michaels. unforgettable 1996 WrestleMania Ironman match that went to sudden death to crown Shawn Michaels as his first WWE Championship. Following that is Mind Games from In Your House of 96, Michaels vs. Mankind, followed by the beginning of the Attitude Era, Stone Cold Steve Austin, Shawn Michaels, WrestleMania 14, with Mike Tyson as the special guest enforcer. As we all know, Attitude Era, like I said, started with Austin, and that's how it went down. And leaving us off at that, it's 2 years have gone by. The titles pass hands to like The Rock, Mick Foley, Triple H, and it starts off with the game Triple H versus Cactus Jack in a street fight at the Royal Rumble of the year 2000. Cactus Jack would go on to defeat Cactus Jack would lose to Triple H, and it would go following up to SummerSlam, where The Rock would now have the title. Kurt Angle and Triple H had started their rivalry over Stephanie, and it gets into a giant triple threat at SummerSlam, which The Rock wins because of Stephanie's screw-up by helping out Triple H and Angle. Following that, we go straight to Austin Rock 2, WrestleMania 17, which led into the Invasion Saga, which led up into the SummerSlam and the Survivor Series matches between Austin and The Rock and the WWE versus the Alliance, well, WWF versus the Alliance of WCW and ECW. Rock lost to Austin yet again. Following that, we have the first ever Vengeance, where it was to crown the Undisputed Champion, where Y2J, as he self-proclaims himself, the first ever Undisputed Champion, well, he is actually, but whatever, but self-proclaimed the only man to beat The Rock and Stone Cold Steve Austin in the same night. Following that, we have more Vengeances. Just every match on this disc is practically from Vengeance. Rock, Taker, Angle, right off of his Scorpion King movie, comes in. Him and Undertaker and Angle just beating the shit out of each other. The American Badass, the Bald American, and the Brahma Bull just beating each other, using each other's finishers on each other, crowning The Rock as the champion. Then we go to the youngest ever WWE champion, Brock Lesnar, at that following SummerSlam. Brock versus The Rock. Following that, we have the Royal Rumble 03, one of the best matches in the first ever live pay-per-view match that I ever got to actually see, if I can recall correctly. Benoit, Angle. Great match. Great match. They just went at it. They went for submission after submission. Barely any pinfalls in its final minutes. And Angle won via submission. And to end it, we have to go with, well, the self-proclaimed, the champ, John Cena. Which, you can't see him. Versus Y2J, Chris Jericho, and Christian in a triple threat match. The match, I was kind of hoping, it's alright. It's a pretty good match because Jericho and Cena had that really good rivalry for those few months that he first joined Raw. Adding in Christian, that's pretty cool for what he's become now, being an NWA and TNA World Champion. I mean, it would be great, seeing him eventually become WWE Champion. This was his first ever WWE Champion match that I can recall in WWE history. It just didn't live up to expectations because the match was mostly around John Cena and Jericho, so he got really no say in this match. Like, he got a few things in, barely did anything at times. I mean, right now I'm watching this and he's barely doing anything. He's just sneaking in, trying to get pins, hitting Jericho when he can, because this was off their rivalry over Trish Stratus's like third time being a slut in WWE. Since this was made in 06, I kind of wish we would have got to see the Extreme Rules match between RVD and Cena. I mean, that's just right around the time I started hating Cena, because Cena started becoming that giant sellout in WWE. And, he's not a sellout, but by becoming the poster child, he sold out the whole, him being, the Chang Gang, and with the TV going to G in the past few years, TV, PG and shit. John Cena, he ain't what we teenagers and young adolescent kids grew up with. He's a great, charismatic person and champion, but I don't like having him like Hogan, having this and that. I mean, Hogan was Hogan. That was during the 80s, but this is the 90s, and you can't really copy Hogan. I mean, Cena, he's his own icon, but what I see him as is a new Hogan. And I I don't know, it just, when Cena first got it, it was good. When he got it back a second time, it was good. Then when, like, he lost it to, like, RVD or whatever, got it back, blah, blah, blah. And then Randy Orton came in. When Randy Orton had that one where they were supposed to go in that last man standing match before he got injured, it was all Orton. No matter what, Orton was going to win that match in the last man standing, but still, it was Orton's time, it was other people's times, and I am glad that John Cena, over the past few years, from that huge 07-06 match with Orton, he's only held it a couple of times, and not longer than at least 4 months, I think. That's great. I mean, when he had the World Heavyweight Championship, I didn't like it either. But, I mean, at least with the WWE Championship being around Orton's waist, Triple H's waist, Sheamus's, and even The Miz. I mean, The Miz, he's not that great just yet because WWE hasn't given him enough push, but they're pushing him now really well. So, I gotta say, out of this DVD, there's great technical wrestling, great charismatic, like guys in there that really push the matches along. You have Hogan, Hart, and Michaels, Austin, The Rock, Triple H, Taker. You have all of them in there, and it just really puts you out there knowing that these guys are what WWE, WWF is all about. I mean, it's too bad that they made this History of WWE Championship back in 06, and leaves out Edge and RVD, but still, there were great champions that I think were either overlooked or some other matches that should be in the next volume of History of the WWE/WWF Championship. I mean, really, eventually when they make it, like the book that they have, I'd like to read that book. But I mean, there's going to be more champions down the road. I don't see WWE getting shut down, at least within this following few decades. I believe it's going to be at least, I'm going to say at least 30 years since maybe WWE gets taken down or changes its name or something. I'm going to say, give it at least between 15 to 30 years, I'm going to say, till WWE is gone. But right now, WWE, it's not running as strong as it used to, but it's still running strong enough with the fans out there. TNA, it's growing, but WWE, they have a lot to catch up on WWE. WWE's been around for almost, I would say, 40 years, 50 because of the the 3WF. I mean, it's been around for a long time, and it's not going anywhere just yet. Not just yet. As long as McMahon's own it, we're still good. So, this has been the history of the WWE Championship. I am Wheelchair21, aka Doyle, and I'll talk to you later.